United Nations, New York, September 27, 2025. Niger's Prime Minister Ali Mahaman Lamine Zeine used the stage of the United Nations General Assembly to deliver one of his country's sharpest rebukes yet to its former colonial power. In a speech that drew international attention, he accused France of decades-long exploitation of Niger's uranium wealth, portraying the dispute as not only an economic injustice but also a threat to the sovereignty and dignity of the Nigerian people. The intervention came just a day after the French nuclear group Orano announced that an international tribunal had ruled in its favour in an ongoing legal battle with Niger. The case centres on the country's attempts to reclaim control over one of its most important uranium mines, a resource Niger's new military-backed government says has been plundered for decades. For more than half a century, Niger has been one of the world's leading sources of uranium, a strategic mineral critical for nuclear power and weaponry. Much of that uranium has gone to fuel France's powerful nuclear energy sector, yet Niger remains one of the world's poorest countries. Zeine, who became prime minister after the July 2023 military coup that brought the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland, CNSP, to power, framed the issue as a moral and historic wrong that has inflicted poverty and environmental destruction on his country while enriching France. Standing at the UN's iconic green marble podium, Zeine did not mince words. In one of the most forceful parts of his address, he declared, Ali Mahaman Lamine Zeine said, "Then there is the plundering of our resources to the detriment of the people of Niger and the environment. In half a century of exploitation, uranium has brought nothing but misery, pollution, rebellion, corruption and desolation to the people of Niger and prosperity and power to the French." The statement encapsulated decades of resentment among Nigerians who believe their country's natural wealth has failed to translate into public good. Zeine went further, highlighting the environmental costs of decades of uranium mining in the northern town of Arlit, long a hub for French-backed extraction. He warned about the devastating pollution, saying, Ali Mahaman Lamine Zeine said, "If you go to Arlit today, all the groundwater is contaminated, which is unacceptable." The remark resonated deeply in Niger, where activists have long accused foreign companies of leaving behind toxic waste and contamination, leading to health problems among local communities. Environmental groups have previously reported high levels of radioactivity in water and soil near the mines, but Zeine's choice to raise it at the world's premier diplomatic forum gave the issue a new global platform. The immediate spark for Zeine's remarks was the ongoing clash between the Nigerian government and Orano, formerly known as Areva. Following the military takeover, Niger's new rulers announced plans to nationalize key mining assets as part of their pledge to reclaim economic sovereignty. Orano challenged this move, and on September 26, 2025, the company announced that an international arbitration tribunal had sided with it, allowing it to continue operating the Imuraran uranium deposit, one of the largest in the world. The tribunal's decision was celebrated in Paris but met with anger in Niamey, where the ruling junta views it as an obstacle to its efforts to use the country's resources for its own development. Zeine told the Assembly that the legal battles were an attempt by France to undermine Niger's sovereignty and stifle its development. Ali Mahaman Lamine Zeine said, "Since the advent of the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland and the Niger government's decision to exercise its sovereignty over its resources, this government in disarray has been trying to drag us into endless lawsuits to stop the exploitation and sale of our minerals." The description of France as a government in disarray underscored the depth of animosity between the two countries' leadership since Niger's military ousted the pro-Western President Mohamed Bazoum in 2023. Throughout his address, Zeine struck a tone of defiance, portraying Niger as a nation determined to reclaim control of its destiny despite external pressures. He closed his remarks with a statement that drew applause from parts of the Assembly. Ali Mahaman Lamine Zeine said, "Far from dampening our enthusiasm, the adversity we face has strengthened our conviction and our determination to fight until we achieve final victory, inshallah, over the terrorists and their sponsors." This closing remark linked the dispute over uranium to Niger's broader struggle against jihadist insurgents in the Sahel, implying that foreign interference not only exploited the country's resources, but also contributed indirectly to the violence that has destabilized the region. While France has yet to issue a formal rebuttal to Zeine's latest speech, Officials in Paris have repeatedly argued that French investments in Niger's uranium industry have provided jobs, infrastructure and revenue to the country. They point to years of partnership and warn that breaking international agreements could deter foreign investment. However, relations between Paris and Niamey have deteriorated sharply since the 2023 coup. France suspended aid and military cooperation, while Niger's junta expelled French troops and ordered the closure of French military bases. The uranium dispute has added yet another layer of bitterness to an already fraught relationship. Observers say the confrontation could reshape the geopolitics of the Sahel. By challenging French dominance in uranium extraction, Niger has opened the door to other partners, including Russia and China, both eager to expand their footprint in Africa's resource sectors. Zaine's speech also tapped into a wider narrative of post-colonial frustration across Africa. Many countries rich in natural resources but poor in development have grown more vocal about what they see as unfair contracts signed during or shortly after colonial rule. By highlighting the contamination in Arlit and the alleged lack of benefits for ordinary Nigerians, Zeine aligned Niger with a broader push by African leaders to renegotiate the terms of resource extraction. The issue is not just about economics, but about dignity and self-determination. In Niger's case, the sense of injustice is heightened by the stark contrast between its mineral wealth and persistent poverty. Despite decades of uranium exports, most Nigerians lack access to electricity, clean water, and quality healthcare. Zeine's remarks sparked mixed reactions among diplomats and analysts. Some African delegates privately expressed solidarity, seeing in his words an echo of their own country's experiences with foreign exploitation. Others, especially from Western nations, warned that undermining international arbitration decisions could damage Niger's investment climate and further isolate the country. Human rights and environmental advocacy groups welcomed Zaine's focus on the pollution in Arlit, calling for independent investigations and remediation. However, some also criticised Niger's new rulers for using anti-colonial rhetoric to distract from their own democratic shortcomings and human rights record. The uranium dispute is not merely a legal or commercial quarrel. For Niger's leaders, it has become a symbol of national sovereignty, a test of whether the country can chart its own economic path. For France, it is a challenge to long-standing strategic interests and its nuclear energy sector's reliance on imported uranium. Analysts note that the outcome of this confrontation will have profound implications for both nations and could set a precedent for similar resource disputes elsewhere in Africa. In his UN speech, Zeine sought to portray Niger as a victim of decades of foreign exploitation, yet also as a nation determined to stand on its own feet. His repeated references to resilience and faith were aimed at rallying both domestic and international support for Niger's course. The clash between Niger and France over uranium has become more than a trade dispute. It is now a high-stakes political battle with global repercussions. By elevating it to the floor of the United Nations, Zeine signalled that Niger intends to fight not just in the courts, but in the arena of international opinion. His words, particularly the stark accusation that in half a century of exploitation, uranium has brought nothing but misery, pollution, rebellion, corruption and desolation to the people of Niger, and prosperity and power to the French, will likely continue to reverberate far beyond the General Assembly Hall.
And invite him to address the Assembly.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على النبي الكريم. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs.
Then there is the plundering of our resources to the detriment of the people of Niger and the environment. In half a century of exploitation, uranium has brought nothing but misery, pollution, rebellion, corruption and desolation to the people of Niger, and prosperity and power to the French. If you go to Arlit today, all the groundwater is contaminated, which is unacceptable. Since the advent of the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland and the Niger government's decision to exercise its sovereignty over its resources, this government in disarray has been trying to drag us into endless lawsuits to stop the exploitation and sale of our minerals. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say emphatically that far from dampening our enthusiasm, the adversity we face has strengthened our conviction and our determination to fight until we achieve final victory, inshallah, over the terrorists and their sponsors.
Madame la Présidente, Mesdames et Messieurs, j'aimerais cependant dire avec force que loin de briser notre élan, l'adversité à laquelle nous faisons face a renforcé notre conviction, notre détermination à combattre jusqu'à la victoire finale, Inch'Allah, les terroristes et leurs sponsors.